Hi. Today is a special video because today I will not be talking about a movie like I'm used to. Today I will be talking about a book I just finished reading, and that book is Deep Work by Cole Newport. We're already a month into 2026, and I know that 2025 wasn't an easy year for a lot of people, myself included. And for this new year, I want to be able to improve my lifestyle. I want to be able to get closer to my goals and to be happier overall. And I think that I cannot do that without implementing deep work into my life to be able to work as hard as I can. Anyway, so reading that book, I asked myself four questions that I wanted to be able to answer after reading that book. The first question was, what concrete habits can I adopt to create regular blocks of uninterrupted deep work in my day-to-day life? The second question I asked myself was, which activities in my current schedule are shallow work and how can I reduce them? The third question was, how will I train my mind to tolerate boredom and resist digital distraction? And finally, how can I get into deep work? And reading these questions, I suddenly realized something. I suddenly realized that the first question I needed to ask myself is, why getting into deep work in the first place? Why would you learn these methods and what would you implement it into your life? And like Carl Newport is answering this question into the book, and the first answer is deep work allows you to quickly learn hard things. If you want to excel in the skill you want to learn, if you want to be able to learn a lot of hard things, if, for example, you are starting a new job, or I don't know, if you want to learn if you want to learn a new language, for example. Anyway, all of these hard things, you need intense concentration. This is what Carl Newport is calling deliberate practice. And in order to achieve deliberate practice, you need two main components. The first component is that your attention needs to be tightly focused on the skill you are trying to master. And the second component is that you need to receive feedback, because feedback is key. You can learn a lot of things. For example, let's say you are learning how to speak Spanish, for example. If you learn how to speak Spanish by yourself, it's okay. You can learn how to speak your language by yourself. This is the way I learned how to speak English in the first place. Like, I am French. I'm French. And I think you can hear I'm French because I have a French accent anyway. And learning English by myself was okay, but I needed feedback in order to improve the words I'm using, the vocabulary I have, the active vocabulary I'm using when constructing my sentences, my accents, all of these things. You need feedback, because even if you have a hard attention, even if you have a very tightly focused attention, you need feedback in order to achieve deliberate practice. And one thing that is important that the author is insisting in is that deliberate practice cannot exist alongside distraction. I will be talking later about distraction, but distraction is everywhere in our society, and we just need to put distance between us and distraction, because we're living in a world where distraction is pretty much controlling us through our phones, our computers, our screens in general. Anyway, so as I said, you need deep work because you want to be able to quickly learn hard things. And second of all, you need deep work to produce at an elite level. And you can argue, for example, you can say something like, why would I need to produce at an elite level? You need to produce at an elite level because we are living in a world where we are competing against artificial intelligence. And I'm talking about AI, but even though AI didn't exist, and AI didn't exist before 2021 or 2020, who cares? Anyway, it didn't exist back then. But we are living in a globalized economy. It means that you are competing with the entire world. You know, if you live in America, if you're listening to me from America or from China, for example, you're not like if you are an American, you're not just competing with Americans. You're competing with Chinese nationals. You're competing with Japanese. You're competing with Brazilians. You're competing with Australians. You're competing with everyone. So you need to be able to get into long, uninterrupted stretches. This is a must if you want to be a productive individual. And when I'm talking about that, it seems like I'm only talking about your day-to-day job. No, I'm not talking about just your day-to-day job. I'm also talking about the skills you want to master. Let's say, for example, you are learning how to code, or you are learning trading, for example. These are hard skills, and to learn these hard skills requires deep work. And this is a good thing I read that book because it gave me a full methodology of how can I get into deep work. But we'll get into that later. A second question that is coming to my mind as I'm speaking is that why deep work is not sprayed out the way shallow work is. Because if deep work allows you to produce at an elite level, for example, why organizations, why people do not promote it? And this is simply because of what Newport is calling the principle of least resistance. And it means that people, processes, organizations, all human entities are always choosing the options that require the least effort. So, for example, let's say you are at work and you need to focus on writing a code for a very important program that will allow your organization to double its productivity. What would you do? Would you go into deep work, focusing all day long on your task? Or will you just be chatting with your coworkers on Teams, organizing meetings, and sending emails? This is what Cole Newport is talking about. This is basically that people are always choosing what is the easiest in the moment. And when you're at work, the easiest thing is not getting focused for 8 hours straight. What is the easier thing to do is just sending emails, chatting with your coworkers, because it gives you an immediate reward, and it allow you to avoid the discomfort of deep work. This is the principle of the least resistance. Now, and finally, we can get into the methodology that is needed in order to get into deep work. And to get into deep work is not an easy task. First of all, and that's what you need to know, is that you cannot rest upon willpower to get into deep work, because willpower is a finite resource. And what I mean is that you just have a finite amount of willpower. You cannot focus for 8 hours straight, for example. Try to get your full attention locked in for 8 hours. This is very hard. I know some individuals can do it, but most of us cannot do that. So you cannot just rely on willpower. Instead, you need to add routines and rituals into your life. You need to be able to reduce the friction before getting into deep work. So you need to know exactly where you'll work, for how long, and what rules you are enforcing to yourself. For example, let's say when I'm talking about rules, I'm talking about I will not be using my phone or any device, for the hour I'm working today. Okay? And you also need to know how you'll support your work. For example, would you take light walks during your breaks? Will you drink a good cup of coffee during your break? All of these things. Okay? So you need to ritualize as much as you can. And to implement these rituals and routines into your life, you can take different approaches. This is what Newport is calling philosophies. You have the monastic philosophy of deep working, the rhythmic one, and the journalistic one. The first one, the monastic philosophy of deep working, is maximizing deep work by eliminating shallow obligations. For example, you'll just say, okay, I'm not answering one email ever again. The bimodal philosophy of deep work is you just alternate between long, distraction-free deep work and clearly defined periods of shallow work. The rhythmic philosophy of deep work is it is about basically a consistent daily rhythm through regularly scheduled, repeatable focus sessions. And finally, you have what Newport is calling the journalistic philosophy of deep work. And this is the most tricky one, because basically this method is about getting to deep work when you have an available time window. But I will just talk about myself now. I know I have discipline, but I don't have this level of discipline, knowing that I'll be getting into deep work when I'm having free time. It will just not work for me. But you can implement it if you have enough discipline. Now that we've talked about all of these philosophies, in order to be able to get into deep work more easily, and how you can train your mind to tolerate boredom, this is not an easy task, and this is not some magic formula. To be able to tolerate boredom, you need to embrace it. So you need to be able to rewire your brain to be comfortable resisting boredom. So what I mean is that, as I told you in the introduction of this video, we always rely on our phones, on our computers, on every other screen to put distance between us and boredom. So we live in a society full of distraction, and this is frying our brains, and we're not even into some intellectual, very deep content that we are distracting ourselves with. No, I'm talking about TikTok. Um, I'm talking about Instagram Reels. All of this very low quality content that we are consuming every single day that is frying our brain. And how can you watch TikTok for 6 hours a day and be able to get into deep work when you need to? You can do it. I know a lot of people can do it, but this is making your life so much more harder than it should be. So you need to embrace boredom in order to get into deep work more easily and to be able to implement it into your life. And I will end this video by it. Carl Newport said something in its book, and it's very important. We always say we are going to take an available time window to get into deep work. But if you really want to produce at an elite level, you need to take breaks from distraction instead of work. So, for example, you'll just give you 1 day a week of distraction instead of 6 days of distraction and 1 day of work. This is very important. Anyway, so that was my take about the book. The book is very good. I think I've learned a lot of things, a lot of methodologies. I just think that book could have been shorter. It is pretty long sometimes, and it could have been like twice shorter. I don't know if it's a correct English sentence, but it shouldn't be that long. But this is the only critique I will say about the book. But overall, it was a very good book. I think if I respect all of these rules that are listed in the book, I can improve my life, and I think you guys can improve yours too. Anyway, so that was my take about deep work. I hope you liked this video, and if you liked it, please give it a like, comment it anyway. I know you guys really liked my last video about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I'm just proud because I've never made that much views on YouTube, so it means that this channel is about to take in. Anyway, so that was it about this video. Take care, guys. See ya.